Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 5onFriday. So this week we have Costas and Kate with us, obviously. The old schools are going to give Tom Wallis from Cluster some advice on cold calling, and hopefully we'll leave Tom with some ideas as to how we can improve. So, Tom, would you mind quickly introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about the business that you represent?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Tom from Cluster. 6 weeks into an SDR role there.
So from this session specifically, what would you like to lead with? Is there something that you really like to refine at the moment within your process?
The introduction, I'm always really bad at. I think I'm okay at the questioning and exploration, but also the closing as well. Because like I said, I don't see myself as a typical salesperson. So those two fundamental aspects, the opening, the close, and they're two things I don't feel very good at.
Okay. Brilliant. I'm sure we can help address that. Kate, I think you've got a couple of questions that you'd like to surface before we go into the role play itself. Can I hand over to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to kind of the open and close that you're going to do, and important to the role that Costas is going to play. Can you give us an indication of the typical buying persona? So who would you be phoning? Who would you be researching and phoning on a daily basis that you think are the right people for Cluster?
Yeah, brilliant. Great question. I'll break it down into people and then the types of companies. So the people we're dealing with are normally sales operations or revenue operations leaders, anywhere from managers to VPs. These are the people who look at the revenue function in the business and use data to try and predict what's happening and where the business is going to go. As well as that, because they work so closely with sales teams, it's also going to be sales leaders, anywhere from a sales manager to a VP of sales to CFO. As a tertiary sector, also founders and CEOs, but you might find they more typically would give us a recommendation or a referral rather than taking a look at the product itself. The types of companies we deal with are B2B SaaS companies, normally with 15 sales reps. Because we use data analytics, what we need is a lot of data. That's the only way we can be predictive. So it doesn't work if there aren't many opportunities, aren't many reps. There needs to be a lot of spinning plates to try and use the tool to try and understand, if that makes sense.
Okay, so let's pretend the phone has just rung, Costas picked up and then said hello.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Costa. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Who is this?
Oh, it sounds like it's Tom from Cluster, by the way. Sounds like you weren't quite expecting my call, but if you had 37 seconds, I really wanted to ask you a few questions. Does that sound okay?
Okay, just go ahead, yeah.
Brilliant. So, Costas, actually, the first really important thing to clarify here, you are the sales ops leader for your company, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's make this super relevant to you, make this something interesting. I'll list 4 key areas, and if you need to phone a friend, you can do that. But which one of these are you having the most difficulty with right now? Is it going to be forecasting, pipeline reviews, data-driven coaching, or funnel analysis? What area are you trying to fix right now, Costas?
Forecasting is always a challenge. You know, there's only one accurate forecast. There's never an accurate forecast. So yeah, forecasting, I'd say.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Let's delve into that. You said there's never an accurate forecast. Tell me, why do you think this? Why can't we have accurate forecasts? Is it ever achievable?
No, it's well, I don't know if it is, but I just don't have a crystal ball and do not know what's going to happen in the future. I give it my best shot with what we have, yeah, like everyone else.
Yeah, okay, understood. Interesting. So you said that you can't see what's going to happen into the future. Right now, what are you dealing with where you're trying to see something that's happening in the future and you're not able to do that? Let's again make it super relevant.
Yes. Was that a question?
Yeah, sorry, that was a question. That essentially, what are you looking at right now that you're not able to see?
Well, because of COVID, obviously, there's been pipelines are created and disappear, as quickly as they were created. A lot of people pulling out of projects for us, so that's the problem we have.
Okay, you touched on another good area, that's pipeline. Let's definitely come back to that one. It's really important. I want to continue though with our trajectory. What's the effect of not being able to report properly and understand the trajectory of your business? What's happening here? What's the consequence?
Personal consequence or for the business?
Yeah. Actually, let's go personal. Let's make it pertinent.
Well, if I can't help the business forecast properly, then I will lose my job.
Yeah, okay. Is that something you're actually worried about right now? Is this something that's quite real?
You know. like everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah, understood. Okay, then let's switch back to the business. What projects are you having to freeze or tailor back on because you're not able to forecast effectively?
Well, opening new territories. We launch a new product, and we need this product to go well. So we need to be focusing on those pipelines to make it a successful launch.
Okay, brilliant. What's this new product, Costas? Tell me about what it does.
I have to think of a new product. So Tom, let's say that I told you the new product and you were very excited about the new product.
Okay, brilliant. All right, so we touched on pipeline. You're saying that pipeline gets created and it disappears almost in a week. Talk to me about this. How is this affecting your reps? How is it affecting morale?
Sorry, Tom, I lost you. You froze. So what was the question?
We went back onto pipeline. So I was asking you, when pipeline is created and when it disappears so quickly, I was wondering about the morale effect on your sales teams. It sounds like it might be quite frustrating for that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So I really want to understand how that's working. Do you have any indication, for example, of why it's disappearing other than just being COVID? Are these bad leads in the first place, or what's going on here?
It's a combination. It's a combination of skill, of leads, timing, objection handling.
Yeah. Okay.
And this whole sales process. Yeah, it's a combination of things.
Okay. So what you're telling me, Costas, it's a combination between, sometimes it's a rep ability, closing, objection handling. Sometimes it's funnel health. Would that be correct? Did I understand that correctly? Okay.
Yeah.
So these are two really important themes. I think it helps to tackle them separately. Let's dive straight into rep skill. Here's a question. What's the difference between your A and B class reps? What differentiates them?
Many things.
Could you give me one or two? Like maybe something you dealt with this week?
What would you say would be a difference between an A and B rep?
Yeah, really good question. So when I've looked at clients and when I've looked at what reps are doing, one of the major things that we've dealt with is reps who can close more revenue, close, let's say on average, 10 days quicker than their counterparts. That would make them an A-class rep. Maybe they can close slightly more. So they're just two examples from what we deal with. So I'm curious as to how that's working with you, Costas.
And do you know why they close quicker or more revenue?
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. So what we found when we've looked at cluster is one of the things that matters there is recent touch points. So if they can have more interactions with a prospect, they tend to close more quickly. And we can see that, for example, with clients we've worked with, if they haven't had a touch point in the past 14 days, that enters a danger zone. And actually that puts that deal at risk and it puts it into jeopardy. So yeah, okay. So I've told you some really interesting insights actually about data-led coaching there. What does your coaching world look like? So when you're sales leaders or when you sit down with a rep, talk to me about the types of conversations that happen.
Well, listen, the conversation vary, but I'm not quite sure that it's a coaching conversation you will have with someone who forgets to actually call a client for 15 days. It's more of a coaching around priorities and how they spend the time.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, interesting. Okay. So you wouldn't see that yourself as a coaching issue. That's more of
it is a coaching issue. It's not necessarily a sales issue. Not necessarily. It's more of a time management, organizational issue.
Yeah, interesting.
How does cluster help me apart from just give me visibility that someone hasn't spoken to someone for 15 days?
Yeah. So if we're talking about reps specifically, what you would typically see is that, I don't know, let's say a week before close, you can see that you're quite far away from your revenue target. Cluster would stop that happening in the first place because it could see where deals were in jeopardy much earlier, so you could have taken action. So you could have said to a rep, I can see that deal's at risk. You haven't spoken to them for 15 weeks. We know that's typically putting a deal at risk there. We know, for example, I don't know, it comes from a source that typically has a 50% high fail rate, and that, I don't know, you discounted at a much higher rate at the beginning. And all of these three things, if you look at the data, would put that deal at risk based on historic understanding. With that understanding, you can course correct at the beginning of your quarter, of your month, of your close, so that you don't get to the end of the close in trouble, trying to scramble, trying to make and trying to fill the difference there. Does that make sense? Essentially, it doesn't just give you the analytics; it tells you what you need to do to fix.
I'm just trying to understand what makes you think that I can't see and hear these conversations from a CRM system.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So CRM systems do give you a lot of information. We find the challenge they pose is actually the time looking into that data. If you didn't have a really predictive tool, would be inhumanly possible. So to gather all of that data on every individual rep on a daily basis in a predictive way wouldn't be something that a sales ops team could do. They just wouldn't have time. But when that's automated and when that uses data intelligence, essentially you can see things you'd never be able to see otherwise. Does that help?
Make the current process a bit better. That's pretty much what you're saying.
I think that's definitely, I think that's a good explanation of one of the things we do. Process alignment, funnel health is a really important reason why revenue forecasts often aren't very effective. We all know about sales reps who don't use CRM systems properly and the kind of cultural issues. That would be one of the buying personas that if you are struggling with, Cluster could help with. Now, does that sound like an issue you're dealing with? When I talk about these issues, does that resonate with you at all, or does that kind of miss the mark?
If I'm being very honest, Tom, I like what you say, but I don't think it's something I need to necessarily do anything different than what I'm doing, right? It's not as if we're missing target by 50%. I always thought that if you are plus minus 5% of what you were forecasting, I think it's a good forecast. Mm-hmm. So I'm not quite sure that I need to change something in what we do currently.
Yeah, okay, that's great. So what you're telling me here is you're not missing your target by a huge amount. It's not 50% off target. You're about 5 to 10% sometimes off target.
Well, yeah, because you talk to people, you have a process, and it works most of the time.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's really great. You do have your revenue actually quite accurate. Lots of the people we work with don't. I mean, yeah, it's a good point. It's not a bad forecast if it's only 5 or 10% off. But I'd say the revenue left on the table, if it is 5 to 10% off every month, can be really significant to your business. And actually, if you're telling me that you're having some issues with COVID, if you're having some issues forecasting, I think that could be quite a significant thing, if that makes sense. Now, what I'd really like to do, Costas, is actually try and crystallize what I think I've understood here. But you know your job much better than me, so you're going to be better than I am at understanding this. But I just want to make sure I have this crystal clear, okay? So your revenue reporting isn't terrible, 5 to 10% off target. Actually, that's not too bad. You do have some apprehensions over COVID. They are making reporting difficult. And that's often because there's a rapidly changing landscape. Pipeline can come, pipeline can go. That's dual with, so that's like a sales process issue. And sometimes actually it also goes down to the rep level. It's their skill base. It's their ability to close deals and do objection handling. So there's kind of two issues going on here right now. And that's giving you some anxiety personally around your role, but it's also making it hard for the business because they can't see where they're going in the future. Now, is that a fair summation of what you said, Costas?
Pretty fair, yeah.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. So I think you've raised some really good objections here. I think where I would see Cluster working with you guys, and from what I've listened to you, here's an area where I think it could interest you. Number one, that 5 to 10%. If you could make that 100%, kind of, why wouldn't you spend 20 minutes looking at that? If you could help your reps close more deals, I'm sure you care about them as human beings. Sounds like that might be worth a conversation. And if you are having an issue of pipeline health, this is something that I actually really genuinely believe my co-founder Rory is very knowledgeable about. So I think those 3 use cases are really interesting. And given that we work with lots of clients on these things, I'd love to spend 30 minutes actually taking a deeper dive with you into what your issues are, what the community has done to solve these issues. And then if it fits, if it works for you, we could also take a look at Cluster as well. Does that sound okay?
Sounds okay.
Okay, brilliant. So if I put in some time Monday, 4 o'clock, would that work for you, Costas?
Definitely not.
Okay, no worries. So talk to me about that. Is it just a bit too soon, or do we need to go later in the week?
We can go later in the week. I can come back with you with some times.
Okay, that's great. I can understand you must be really busy. I'll just be really transparent with you here. I'm new to sales. I'm 7 weeks in, but what I've learned already is sometimes when I hear this, it just never happens. And I think that makes me sad because the problems you talk about, they keep on going, because we know what sales is like, right? It's absolutely mental, and then something will get in the way. I find that if we put something in the calendar, things are more likely to happen, and then your issues are more likely to be solved. So if I could get you, say, Thursday, 11 o'clock, it's a bit later. Does that work for you now, Costas?
If you send the information, I'll reply, Tom. That's all I can give you right now.
Okay, so we can send an email. Can definitely do that. I'll look into your company and I'll look at what I think could work. I'm going to level with you, Costas, and this is up to you. And if you want it in an email and if you want to meet a month later, that's what we can do. But when you've described your problems there, they're happening right now. And I think if we could solve those problems right now, wouldn't you want to do that?
Who knows, Tom?
I think maybe you would. We'll see. Okay, so listen, I think let's talk to you about, at the least from that call, what we can get out of that is spending 30 minutes about someone who loves sales ops. He's a good guy to speak to. He's a bit of a nerd about sales ops, and he's pretty educational about how a lot of this world works. So if you don't want to see it as a demo, I've sensed maybe that's not really appealing to you right now. Would you be open to a 30 minutes kind of educational lesson about what other sales ops leaders are doing?
Sure.
And then we can leave cluster on the table.
Absolutely. I just want to dictate when I will be educated about what the community does. Is that a fair request?
Yeah, of course. That's very fair.
So why don't you send the email and I will reply back to you?
Yeah, we can do that. I'll send an email, but yeah, we can do that. I do sense, so cluster, there's something I might have missed here, because when you've described all of your problems, when you've described everything that's going wrong in your business, and when I've talked to my founder and we've done kind of a deep dive into cluster and what we do, these are things we fix. So I think I must be missing something here. 7 weeks into the role, Costas. What have I done wrong here to not convince you properly?
Well, you haven't done anything wrong. I think you raised my interest, but I think you're trying to dictate when I will actually take the 30-minute demo.
Sure.
Which
okay.
Maybe other people are fine with it. It just doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm being a bit pushy. Am I guilty of being a pushy salesperson?
Yeah, you've been a bit pushy. And my advice would be that take my willingness to talk to you, but that's pretty much it. It's
okay, Costas. I think what I really like about this role is that I get to speak to some awesome sales leaders, and they get to educate me every single day. Being 7 weeks in, definitely have a lot to learn. So how about this as an action plan? I'll send you a hyper-personalized email, and I'm sure you won't mind if I call you back a day later to see if we can book in a time slot. How does that sound?
Why don't you do that, Tom?
Brilliant. All right, Costas. Well, thanks for opening up. Thanks for sharing, and expect an email by the end of the day.
Thanks for the call.
Cheers. Have a nice day.
Hey, Tommy, how do you think it went, first of all?
You did really well to put me under a lot of pressure. Which was great. And I definitely felt that pressure. There are times when I think I did scramble and I did hesitate and I wasn't always sure what to do. I think there are other times when I managed to bring it back a little bit. Overall, I'd say probably pretty average. Like I just genuinely don't think I'm that amazing, at least not yet.
Are there other parts that you feel you've done really well? I want to hear what you thought you did really well.
Sure. So I think what I did quite well is when you're asking me a lot about cluster, I eventually managed to transition it to ask a bit more about what's happening with you, which I was very keen to do. I think that was okay. I think I surfaced what issues you're dealing with to a relatively well extent. The bad parts are, I think my opening was quite disjointed.
We're still in the good parts, Tom. We're still in the good parts.
Oh, okay. I always tend to focus on
do you feel that you did something else?
I think we built okay rapport by the end. If I didn't push so hard, it would have been better, but I think I managed to salvage it a bit. I think I asked okay questions. Yeah, I think basically I managed to more or less understand what's going on with you guys and what's going wrong. Probably could have understood a bit more, but I think that wasn't terrible.
Okay.
You did something which was fantastic. The summary and the prescription. That was brilliant, by the way. That was really, really good. You sort of said, I just want to crystallize what I've understood. I'm going to kind of spin it back to you. And I thought, oh, here we go. I've had this done to me so many times, and then you absolutely smashed it. And I almost want to see how you take notes, because in real time you could basically say, "These are the problems." I saw Costas' face, and he was just like, "Oh wow, you've actually listened to those problems, and you haven't just dictated those, and you made some prescriptions, right? These are the things that I think we can do to actually help." I think that was brilliant. You should really, really continue to use that. I thought that was quite impressive. I don't know what you guys thought.
Yeah, I've written that down. I also thought that you were very good at your implication questions. You carried on picking at that scab to see where it would go, which was great. You took it into that personal implication, took it into the business implication. I've written down, I like the validity, that reaffirming, did I get that right? Which is great. Again, I've written again, because you summarised twice, I like the summary. So yeah, I think implication questions, those problem questions, implication questions, great. Really dug into that. And then the summarising and playing back, really good.
So I'd like to ask you something. What are you hoping to gain from making this call?
Coming on 5on5 specifically.
No. Sorry, the call to Costas.
Oh, right.
When you're dialing.
Yeah, right. Okay.
What's the goal?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'll be honest with you. Struggling to book meetings recently, you do feel that pressure to get a meeting, and I'm definitely being guilty of that in the past few days, just really pushing for that when actually I don't think it's appropriate. But the fundamental thing I try and gain is to try and understand what that person is experiencing properly. And to really learn about what people in that role are going through, because really I'm quite clueless in a lot of the time. So I'm just trying to improve my understanding and trying to understand it for that person specifically.
I think one of the reasons why I asked that question is because it seems very apparent that you're almost in a learning phase. But part of your role is to sell the meeting. Okay. My sort of perspective on this, from what I just listened to you doing, is you're almost trying to dig too deep and overqualify and kind of go beyond selling the meeting. Like you're almost being too much of a good person to try and really dig into the problem, to almost qualify them to an extent where you want to hand it over to your AE or perhaps Rory to say, this prospect is gold, by the way. You don't need to do that. I actually think you're trying too hard, to be honest with you. I think you need to get a bit more structure and start doing the sort of the basics well. So never call someone, in my book, people might disagree with me, but never call someone and say, is this your role? Like, the better that you asked for 37 seconds, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because I've had 27, I've had loads of, I don't use that myself, but I think that's okay. But what you've almost said is there's a really short period of time that we have here. So what I say is, rather than ask, can I have 30 seconds of your time? You say, look, I only have a minute, by the way. And the reason I'm calling is because of this. I noticed your role is this. And these are the two reasons why these people in this role, these are the two things that these people in this role are challenged with right now. Do either of those resonate with you? Right. So one, I only have a minute. It means the prospect isn't feeling the pressure as much, rather than, can I get 30 seconds of your time?
Yeah.
Right. I noticed this about your role, and these are the two things that people in your role are challenged with. Do either of those resonate with you?
Yeah.
You can cut to the chase really quickly, and then you don't have to overly quantify.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
I was coaching one of my SDRs earlier today, and using this exact example. Imagine somebody phoning you. Put yourself in your buyer's shoes and saying, "Hi, I'm Kate. I'm calling from the Northwest Electricity Company. Can you walk me through your day and how much electricity you use at each point, how many lights you turn on and off, and just walk me through in detail everything you do with electricity throughout your day. You don't know what I'm trying to help you with. I just want to know everything about you." And that becomes like, you're asking too much from me. I'd reflect of Alex. I wrote down, you were almost too good at asking the problem and implication questions. You said that was an area of strength. It's almost too big an area of strength.
Yeah, interesting.
Too much question without context. At one point, Costas threw you a bone and said, "Can you tell me how you would help with some of this stuff. But it was
Yeah, okay.
way down the line
Yeah,
of you drawing loads and loads and loads and loads of things out of Costas. And I think from my perspective, I'd have probably gotten irritated by that point of saying, I'm answering too many questions here. You could have closed that call with a meeting much, much, much earlier.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I never thought about it like that. But I think, everything you say is totally right, totally correct.
Yeah, just throwing in that empathy.
Yeah, I think Kate's bang on there. That is true empathy. 4 months ago, everyone was saying you need to lead with empathy, and no one was actually putting any flesh on the bones. What Kate just said there is gold, and please take that away because it's such a good analogy.
Yeah,
can you talk us through the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire piece? Here are the 4 options. It's like it felt like you were kind of Chris Harris.
Phone
a friend. Where's that come from, by the way?
Rory thought of like the 4 main things that person deals with, and then we structured that into a question, and then I thought of the phone a friend as a joke to lighten
I actually quite like it, by the way. I like the phone a friend. I like the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire context. And Rory will watch this and he'll probably message me after this, but I would be zoning in on the pain. So you know what I just said to you, these are the 2 things you could use it that way. These are the 4 things, the problems and the challenges, not the sort of the things that you're thinking about and that you do, but right. So I'm a founder of a tech company, right? Right now, these are the 4 things that as a founder, other founders who use Cluster are thinking about, right? Their deals are constantly slipping, and they don't know how many people they're going to be able to hire in the next 2 months. So therefore, they don't know how to scale their sales team, right? That's what I'm thinking about. But it's the problem. It's like I genuinely I can't scale my company unless I have visibility on forecasting. So really zoning on the challenges there rather than the day-to-day. That's just my feedback on that. But I actually quite like the way you did it.
Yeah, no, I think that does make a lot of sense. I suppose I always feel bad like focusing on Cluster like it's taboo, but actually I think jumping to the point essentially of what someone might be challenged by is super useful, super good thing to think about.
Just remember, you're not focusing on Cluster, you're focusing on helping them solve some challenges, and you're using your knowledge of how you've helped other organizations come out of that pain. I wrote down, company X managed to increase their sales by Y through earlier intervention in the deals, which solved the problem that 15-day gap was giving them. That little sort of short snippet almost replaces that need to ask 20 questions, because you're just validating it by what other people have felt.
That's I never really thought about this, I'll be honest with you, but I think what I need to be honest with myself a bit more about is like essentially like it is, especially because I'm talking to salespeople, like it is eventually a sales pitch, and actually being a bit more transparent about that is okay in some ways.
I think that personally I felt good talking to you, definitely in the beginning. I like the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I do agree with what Alex was saying. 4 priorities, 4 problems. I don't think they exist. They're usually 1 or 2, maybe 3 issues that people are dealing with. But that's me being pedantic. What I want to say is that the summer was superb, but afterwards, literally, you've lost me completely. And here's what I want to actually, and again, because I get a few of those calls. Now, assuming that I had, you open the door, that's pretty much what you do right now, right? In this stage of your career. You open the door, your job is to get someone else to get that meeting and probably explain more about what Cluster does and how they help and drill further down to the problems. Now, assuming that I had a great experience with you, that you said to me, I'll take 37 minutes of your time, but you managed within 5 minutes to help me resonate with, you put some problems that I'm facing in front of me, and give me a snippet of how Cluster could have helped me or how Cluster have helped other companies. That is your job. Now, if you ask me for 37 seconds and you put me through an interrogation process, I'm not saying that there was anything wrong with your question, but it was too long. And I didn't know where you were taking them. Where would you go with them? And then at the end, when I was saying, yeah, you know what, I can give you 30 minutes. You're trying to dictate that. That experience then becomes slightly not unpleasant, but becomes one that I don't want to be part of. So I'm thinking if an SDR, whose their job is to get a meeting, takes 15 minutes of my time, does not listen to what I say, look, Just take the meeting. Don't worry about it. Just send the email. What will happen when someone says to me, here's 30 seconds, give me 30 minutes? It will be like an hour.
Mm.
You need to understand that. And I think that because you've got so many good points, understand that your job is to get the meeting. Your job is to identify problems, give a snippet of how you can actually help, ideally with how you help other companies, because that's social proof and relevance, and then pass it on. Maybe, I don't know if was this like a normal average call that this is what's been happening? You push too much at the end?
I'd feel very privileged if I managed to have one for that long. But no, what you say is correct. I think what often happens is I confuse people from the beginning, and that's probably because I don't give enough context. And I definitely have, especially when you haven't booked a meeting for a while, right? You definitely push quite hard for one, and I don't think that's appropriate. I agree with you there. And I think I do. Yeah, I am definitely guilty of trying to go into too much detail, and that becoming very confusing for the recipient. And also a bit of a waste of their time. So yeah, the trends you've highlighted, I think, do happen for sure.
I think 5 minutes is too short, but I would definitely, if I was here, I would try to shorten everything. So find out, for example, the 2 problems, 3 or 4 questions that you can get some meat, some social proof, and see if you can do that within 5 minutes. So I would suggest you do role plays. You go back to your business, find someone, do role plays, keep it 5 minutes. Did you get it? No, you. And then you can correct that, because you can build on the 5 minutes if there's interest. But trust me, no one will stay on the phone for like 10 minutes if there's no interest. You see what I mean? So people will actually put the phone down on you. But I think you've got some great qualities. The summary, were you taking notes?
No.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, I to be honest, I can't remember what I said, because as you get
You weren't
older,
taking
you
notes?
forget. He wasn't.
Okay, yeah,
That's
great.
impressive.
It's really
Yeah.
impressive. That's a real skill. It's really good, actually. I'd quite like to. I don't know how you even teach.
And one very small tactical thing. I liked when you said, listen, when I usually hear people tell me, send me an email, and I thought that you would say something which I like, which is like, usually they disappear, they ghost me for ages, and I get desperate. Is this the case here?
Yeah.
Trying to bring some human element there.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess you around. I'm 47, you're 20, 23. I don't want to mess you around. I'll tell you there and then. But what you did, which I didn't like, you became very salesy, very like, oh, no, help me out. Yeah, I can help you. I can save you.
Yeah.
I didn't like. Play the type, right? You are a young guy that says, look, people ghost me all the time.
Yeah.
When they say that, is this the case here?
Yeah.
Let's open up and have a conversation.
Yeah,
I thought it was a good. The summary was brilliant.
Yeah, I think trying to say human when you feel very uncertain is difficult, but it definitely is always the best approach if you can manage to do it.
You need to get used to the uncertainty, right? You're in sales.
Yeah.
Don't detach from the outcome. Your job is to get the meeting, find 2 pain points. That's it.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to buy it, right? Don't worry about that. So you've got a very clear mind. You take notes. I wish I had that skill. That's pretty impressive.
Take that active listening, Tom. Take that active listening. Take that confidence. Take that knowledge and curiosity, and just hone it.
Yeah.
And you're made. Just hone it into a short period, and practice it as Costas says as a role play.
Yeah, that's really awesome advice. I couldn't agree more, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think you've hit it on the head.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, role playing is one of the most essential things, and I know your organisation well. They'll definitely support you on that. But you need partners in crime. It's just like sport, right? We train for 90% of the time, and we play for 10%. Right? You don't just turn up at your football match and just that's all you do. It's the same with sales, right? And particularly when you get those moments where people pick up, you don't want to be rabbit in the headlights and confidence to be down. Role playing really eradicates that.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom,
but just have a time constraint, because constraint increases creativity. If you say in 5 minutes I need to go through the whole page, you will find out which question you should be asking, how you can actually get there. 5 minutes, and then expand if needs be, but keep it to 5 minutes, no more than that. See how creative you will become.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
Love it. Tom, did you get what you wanted from this session?
Yeah, I did. I got a great chance to practice, and I got like so much amazing critical feedback. It's awesome, and you can tell it's good when you know it's all true, even though you hadn't thought of it before. So yeah, it was great.
Good stuff. All right. Well, look, I'm going to ask you one final thing. would you be willing to nominate someone to appear on 5onFriday in the future? And if so, who would you like to nominate?
Yes, I would nominate Abby Posner from Dixa, who's a really fantastic SDR over there I used to work with.
Okay, we'll see if we can get Abby on, and you can watch Abby do her thing on this show at some point in the future. But
Awesome.
look, in the meantime, our time is up. I'm afraid, Tom. It's been a real pleasure having you on here.
Thank you, Tom.
I said I hope you've got some good stuff that you can take away and put into practice.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this has been another episode of 5onFriday. It's been a real pleasure, and for everyone watching, keep watching for the future.